Howdy folks, Tex Grebner here with Tex Grebner Outdoors. New videos every week, so if you don't want to miss out on your Tex Grebner Outdoors Saturday morning cartoon awesomeness, make sure to click subscribe and check my channel every Saturday for new videos. I'm just coming out after a morning hunt. First week of deer season is over. You might notice I don't have any blood on my hands. Big surprise, but that's hunting, so stay tuned.
I was in my stand well before first light, and the best time in an entire year is the darkness just before sunrise, opening day of deer season. Because in the darkness, your mind can create a phantasmagoria filled with giant bucks. But as the sun comes up, it burns away the phantasmagoria and creates a cruel, unforgiving reality. Sitting in my stand at first light, I was incredibly excited. Every day of hunting is exactly the same, but every day of hunting is just a little bit different. It was the perfect weather. Cold, coolish, misty rain, overcast. I had encountered one hurdle. This was a brand new property that I had had to cross a creek to get to. I was using a climbing stand only 10 feet off the ground, and I had dumped my rangefinder out of my pocket crossing the creek. I hadn't necessarily planned to hunt this, but opening day is a brand new beginning. Everything was perfect, but around noon, having no activity, I managed to go to Menards, get some climbing sticks, and put up a proper stand at this little teardrop of timber that was edged by a soybean field with a well-used deer path along it. The perfect funnel. I would compare myself to a dog quite often. I have a bow hunting obsession. I like sticks. I like hit with sticks. I like to throw sticks. It's all about the sticks, kind of like a dog, and I would like nothing better than to kill animals with sticks. But as the magic hour approached, fidgeting like a puppy in my deer stand, trying to hold as still as I possibly could, hoping against hope, I sat, watching, waiting, listening. People talk about wanting to prove something. And as the sun sank lower and lower on this opening day, I wanted to not prove that I was better than my quarry, but to prove myself against my ancestors.
And let the slow descent into madness begin. That's the end of opening day. I mean, to be honest with you, other than dumping my rangefinder in the creek, it was a pretty good day. Traded out from my climbing stand to my hang-on stand midday. Didn't see nothing, but then again, I didn't get busted by nothing either. Kind of struck off into the unknown with this brand new little patch of timber. It ain't nothing to it, but I figure they'll head there when arrows start flying, so stay tuned. Season ain't over yet, and I'm still hopeful.
To my everlasting shame, I confess, I slept in on a Sunday morning. And so I was hunting an early autumn afternoon that was pleasantly warm, sitting, watching, waiting, listening, trying not to fidget, and loathing the fact that I had forgotten to wear my knee boots to hunt this stand that I had planned on hunting opening day, because I had crossed the creek and gotten my boots wet. Not nearly as important to not get your feet wet in the early autumn as it is in the winter, but still it was slightly annoying. Occasionally I would hear an Osage orange drop from a tree outside my clearing, and I would snatch my bow into my hand filled with excitement, only to be disappointed. Luckily, with it being warm for the most part, I did not have to deal with the rustling of the squirrels in downed leaves, which I knew would come later in the season. Every day of hunting is exactly the same, but every day of hunting is just a little bit different. And I was filled with primal excitement every time that a frog or fish would jump in the creek. Hearing the splash, I would assume that a deer was crossing. Of course, it was nothing, but your mind can create an excellent phantasmagoria when you desire something very much. And so, still attempting not to fidget and enjoying the early autumn afternoon, it became cooler and cooler as the evening continued. With most of the crops still in, there was very little to induce the deer into moving. However, there's always a chance. And so as night came on quicker and quicker, I became incredibly excited, knowing if something was to happen, it would happen soon.
Tried the stand that I was planning on hunting opening day before I changed my plans. Didn't see anything. But the crops are pretty much still in. The harvest is just barely getting started. So they're pretty hard to see when they're out in the cornfields. And there isn't really a good reason for them to move. But I'm only 2 days into the season, so I've still got a little bit of hope. Maybe this year I'll break my whitetail curse. I can't chase the North American 29 if I don't get species number 1.
I made my way across the creek into my stand, being careful not to bust anything out. The wind was good. Every day of hunting is exactly the same, but every day of hunting is just a little bit different. Barely had I got into my stand with the magic hour in full commencement. As I looked out into the corn, I saw deer everywhere, frolicking, simply out of range. But nevertheless, I had my bow in my hand, ready. As you could clearly see, even if you cannot spot the deer, they do have a highway cut through this farmer's cornfield. This is a stand that I spent much of my time in last season. However, this season, I had acquired permission to hunt the field, and I had repositioned my stand. I hoped upon hoped that one would make it to the field edge where they had the corn tromped down extremely badly. But I continued to watch the dark shapes as the magic hour continued. Bucks up on the ridge across the field, does down in the field. I was surrounded by deer, simply out of range, but still hopeful because the wind was good. But I did not fancy, quite honestly, the fact of needing to track a deer through the corn in the evening, and so I was not entirely disappointed that I did not have a shot opportunity presented to me. Truthfully, I don't have a clue what I would do if something actually went right for a change.
Well, seen some deer tonight. Didn't get a shot, but oh well. Slow descent into madness continues. So I hope you guys will stay with me. Once that corn comes out, my luck should improve. But life ain't like the pornos. Hunting ain't like the TV shows.
I hadn't even really planned on going hunting tonight, but I had the chance after I got out of the field with the auger wagon helping get the harvest in, so I slapped the Savage paint on and headed to the cornfield stand again. You never really know what's going to happen when you're hunting, so you just kind of got to be there. It was a beautiful, warm, but yet early fall night. Everything was absolutely perfect. All that it needed was a deer to come prancing through a couple of rows of corn from me, and it would have been just absolutely perfect. Now you see, there's a lot of things that go through my head while I'm hunting, because hunting with a traditional bow presents its own set of challenges. Hunting on film presents its own set of challenges. And of course, hunting on film, traditional bow hunting, and solo filming, trying to get a deer inside my effective range. God forbid I miss. God help me if I wound an animal. I would be very upset about that. You don't want to be putting bad karma out there. So there's an incredible amount of stress and strain and emotional attachment that goes into my deer season. Sitting, watching, waiting, listening, trying to sit as still as I can, which quite frankly, I'm terrible at sitting still. Occasionally a squirrel would run up a corn stalk and make me have a heart attack, but the magic hour was here, accompanied, in fact, by no deer at all. As the sun sank lower and lower, I knew yet again that it was now or never, because I do not look forward to the aspect of hunting next to tall corn and potentially losing an animal. But as the chill came on, I finally decided that it was time to climb down.
Couldn't have asked for a better night for deer hunting in the early season. Didn't have very long to hunt, but I'm just glad I came out so that I could experience it. Whitetail deer are beautiful, majestic, free-spirited creatures, and you never really know what they're gonna do. For those of you wondering why I'm always straggling into the woods, just into the magic hour, I live in real life. I hunt when I have the chance.
You may be wondering why I do what I do, and to be quite honest with you, every time I go hunting I question it. The easiest answer is that I'm on a quest for a whitetail deer, on nobody's terms but my own. I want to tell you a hunting story, but the sad reality of hunting is the quarry often gets away. For thousands upon thousands of years, four-legged critters have evolved, evading mankind. But why do I hunt in general? I bring the camera along to carry on the time-honored tradition of the hunting story. But hunting is an act of nature worship. Hunting, to me, has always been very religious. Not only spiritual, but very religious. Hunting is an act of nature worship. And when you achieve a kill, it is animal sacrifice, plain and simple. Another reason why I equate hunting to religion is because to worship something, you want to please it, you want to draw it nearer to it, and get things from it that you need or desire. I am on a quest. I am chasing a dream. Hunting is religion, and according to my American ideals, you have no right to tell me how I should practice the religion that I choose to practice. One thing that I particularly dislike in the outdoor industry is this perception that hunting is effortless, based off of what people see on television. There is a concept, the moment of truth, when life and death hang in the balance. I live for that moment of truth, but hours and hours of waiting thousands of tiny details, feathers on a scale to balance a brick, all go into one moment of truth when life and death hang in the balance. And quite honestly, with as many things need to line up in order for me to harvest a deer on film and tell you a hunting story, quite frankly, truthfully, and honestly, I have been waiting and working so long that I don't know what I would do. I have no idea how I would react or what to even think if just once everything went right.
You know, venison might be delicious, but I'm not going to feed you some line of bullshit about how, oh, you got to fill the freezer. Screw that. It's so much more than that. It's a holistic communion with nature. But I need to make me some big medicine with a big whitetail. So stay tuned. I didn't really expect to see anything tonight, but it was a gift from God all the same to be able to get into the tree stand.
I had an idea that was just crazy enough to work. I was going to walk through the cornfield to the opposite side where I always saw the bucks and does coming out into the field at night. I had a lawn chair strapped to my backpack, and after making it across the field, I found that, as to be expected, the hillside was absolutely cut with deer trails into the grass. It was an early October, somewhat muggy evening. The magic hour was approaching, and I was facing a trail at the top of the hill. I had a thorn tree at my back, and I had just cut into my supper apple. Everything was absolutely perfect. However, when I stood up to take a piss, no sooner had I stood up than I caught movement over my right shoulder. I froze and touched my wrist remote. There was a doe standing just out of view on the other side of the thorn tree behind me. Moments dragged into minutes as she watched me. I had taken the precaution of coating my Cryptek vest with Evercalm from Conquest Scents. I target glanced my bow and then checked over my shoulder. She was distracted. My heart was in my throat. Everything had gone absolutely perfectly, except for I had faced the wrong trail. Slowly I turned, ready to draw. She was no more than 5 yards away, and as I drew my bow for the perfect quartering away shot, the movement made her see a man, her primal enemy. But I had made big medicine for this, and I was astounded at how close I had come. I remained as motionless as I could, and the doe, surprised, went back to her everyday activities. However, I did not fancy a shot through the honey locust brambles with where she was, and so I made an attempt to skirt around the tree and get a more clear shot opportunity. As if she was teasing me, the doe would bob her head down to feed and then check on the foolish hunter whom she had snuck up on. Sweating bullets, my heart in my throat, I watched as the doe finally fed down into the cornfield. I was astounded at my close encounter and my luck. Sometimes, even if everything goes right, things are just crazy enough to work, and I will make a way of screwing it up. She was absolutely on the other side of the thorn tree, and I had simply been facing the wrong way. Every day of hunting is exactly the same, but every day of hunting is just a little bit different.
No time for savage paint tonight. It's a real long chance, but damn it, I'm going hunting. Only got about an hour worth of shooting light.
There was an autumn chill in the air, and I had noticed the leaves turning from green to different beautiful shades. I didn't have very much daylight, and I wasn't entirely hopeful, and I was somewhat disappointed that I hadn't had the time to put on my face paint. Does face paint really do anything? Not really. Does it make you feel better? Does it enhance the primal sensation of the hunt? I believe it does. I'm not particularly good at deer hunting, but I am very good at making it weird. When in doubt, always make it weird. Sitting, watching, waiting, listening. Every day of hunting is exactly the same, but every day of hunting is just a little bit different. And you can't know what you could see until you have seen it. So you have to be there. The chill of autumn was in the air, even more pronounced as the sun dropped, so did the temperature further. And while I have a hard time sitting still, it became even harder with the chill in the air. There was a rabbit down in my food plot, but his season does not open until November, and so he was safe, or she was safe. But as the sun sank lower and lower, the wind remained in my face. But yet no deer came across the alfalfa pasture to visit my stand, but I did not regret that I had hunted.
Well, sex ain't like the pornos, hunting ain't like the TV shows. I bring you the reality of a deer season. So if you don't want to miss out on your Tex Grebner Outdoors Saturday morning cartoon awesomeness, make sure to click subscribe and check my channel next Saturday to see if I get a big one on the ground. At this point, I'm still hopeful. Nothing is certain in hunting. It is a visceral mystery of our primal past that I partake in. As always, God bless all my sportsmen of America. Join the NRA to protect our rights. Please check out my friends over at SOETacticalgear.com. Thank you very much to those of you involved in law enforcement and those of you serving in the military. Thanks for watching Tex Grebner Outdoors.